Coaches CatChat. Joe Stewart here with head Linfield softball coach Jackson Vaughan, getting ready for the 2024 Super Regional Tournament right here in McMinnville, getting ready to host the Central College Dutch. Coach, how you doing today?
Great. How are you?
Doing great. A lot of preparation for all of us this week, especially with a little bit of an unknown opponent coming in, but getting through the regional tournament against a team you did know pretty well in the Redlands Bulldogs. This was a young team that had a lot to prove and really seemed to show up for the challenge to play you guys as well in some games as any team has this season. End up taking the series in 4 games, but kind of really tested through this weekend. What do you like? What were your kind of takeaways from the series overall?
We knew it would be a tough series. We played them obviously a lot the last 2 years. Jose Ortega, their coach, does a really good job, and they just present some problems with their ability to run the bases. They have, their leadoff kid Horton is a really good player at shortstop and is a hitter, and their 3-hitter Gondara's hitting 500 and has been really good for them both in the circle and pitching wise. But even their bottom of the order kids are just pretty scrappy. They don't strike out a lot, and so you knew there'd be more balls in play. And we'd be tested when we're that way. And their center fielder is one of the best center fielders I've seen in a long time in terms of just range and diving for balls. So we knew there'd be some challenges, and in Ellinger, their pitcher, actually, it was a competitive game. We played her in the preseason. It was 3-2, and so we fully expect it to be a pretty competitive series.
Yeah, so you guys come out and get the run rule victory in Game 1. Definitely kind of set the tone. But then Ellinger comes out and pitches a win against Linfield. The only pitcher to do that this entire year. 3 hits, 2 of them, J.C. Levis home runs. We'll get to J.C. in a minute. But what did you like about the team's ability to kind of flush that loss where things just weren't seeming to break the team's way in a lot of cases, and then come out and get the 17-7 win then in Game 3?
It was pretty typical. I mean, it was a way that you kind of got reminded of why you lose sometimes. Like, the ball just went to people a lot. Like, we obviously flew out some, but we also lined out a lot to people. Their center fielder, I thought, in that game made some really nice plays on some balls that were hit. And we did make some adjustments in terms of trying to take a little bit of air out of the ball. And so we just talked about after the game, being able to make some adjustments and how we'd respond. We hadn't lost all year, but obviously we still had home field advantage. We still had to just win a 2-3 series, and we still obviously felt like we were in good position. So that we jumped out right in the next game, and I think scored 5 runs in the first inning. That certainly, I think, eased everyone's mind a little bit. To Redlands' credit, they bounced right back and I think made it 5-4. But we just continued to kind of put pressure on their pitchers, got into their depth of their pitching a little bit, and were able to just keep finding ways between obviously drawing some walks and then hits to just keep putting runs on the board. And we kind of knew going into the series, we felt like that was going to be the big thing for us, was just to score and keep scoring runs to put pressure on them, but also take some pressure off our defense and off of our pitching staff, and that's certainly how it worked out.
Sure, and you got a lot of contributions from up and down the order in different spots this weekend, something that was really nice to see after, really kind of relied on your stars in a lot of big moments in the conference tournament. Obviously, the big name was J.C. Levis, hitting 4 home runs in those last 3 games of the series, and has had a terrific season, obviously just named to the second team all-region, but really obviously exploded that weekend and seemed to kind of change the tone and the course of the series in a lot of ways. Just what has she been able to do this year to kind of take her game to another level, particularly as we've gone into the late stages of the year in the playoffs?
I think JC's always been a kid that we've known has the potential, just waiting for her to kind of have some of those breakout moments. She's played really well against Redlands for whatever reason throughout the course of her career. But she was obviously seeing the ball well this weekend, and just swing-wise, mechanically, the things that she fights sometimes that she doesn't, that hold her back. She found a way to obviously just get rid of that stuff and swung the bat really clean and got open, and she just has a lot of power. And so if she's able to do those things, she's very dangerous. And so, but just also her development at third over the years, she's been a huge asset for us at third base. She made a number of great plays this weekend. So just all around, she was great. And the game's so fun because, a couple weeks ago, Lewis and Clark was walking Bryn to get to JC because of how hot Bryn was, and then you go into this weekend, and then they end up walking JC to get past her because obviously she was the dominant force over the weekend. So fun how roles kind of changed, and obviously that just shows you weekend to weekend it can change. Different kids obviously are just see the ball better that weekend or just have a little more confidence, and then it ends up showing on the field.
You mentioned the approach and the adjustments and how that changed throughout the day on Saturday. A lot of short counts, a lot of you're being aggressive early in the count in game 2, and then Saturday 10 or game 3 on Saturday 10 walks to go with the 15 hits as well. What were just some of the adjustments going into that game? Was it just be more patient?
A little bit. Obviously, we got in their pitching staff. Garcia came in, who throws a lot of off speed and a lot of junk, and so we're trying to be real patient with her, just because we felt like we didn't want to get caught swinging at pitches we didn't want to hit, and so the girls, I thought, did a great job of that, and obviously drew a lot of walks. And we had some kids like Sophia in the middle of the order, just seems to foul off a lot of pitches and earn her walks. You know what I mean? She has a lot of long extended at bats, and Tiani kind of the same thing at times, and so that certainly helped a lot. And then I think for them, they're also trying to sometimes pitch around carefully some of our better hitters, and when you're doing that, you tend to fall behind in the count a lot, and so I think that had something to do with it as well.
You mentioned the defense and how they had to really go to work with a team that can really rack up the base hits. We'll get to the pitching in a moment, but what do you like about the team's ability to really show up defensively when obviously half the games Taya's limiting teams to 5, 4, 3 hits in a game? Tyler's certainly plenty of outings like that. What do you like about the defense having to really step up this weekend for one of the first times all year?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. Infield was tested a little bit more than we have been, and so it was good to see, obviously, JC make plays, but our bunt defense was solid, I thought, all weekend. And obviously, Ashley Sutton was phenomenal behind the plate. They came in with 134 stolen bases or whatever, and she threw out their best base stealer, Horton, 3 times on the weekend, and that certainly quieted their running game and made it just much more so they had to earn everything with getting multiple hits in an inning to score. And so even though we'd give up some hits, we were able to obviously keep them off the scoreboard for the most part, particularly obviously as we got into the final game where we won 7-2. I think we still gave up 8 or 9 hits, but held them to the 2 runs. And Ashley behind the plate was a huge part of that, along with obviously everybody else just being solid, not making any mistakes.
Yeah, so with Taya and Tyler McNeely, again, haven't been in a lot of moments where they're pitching from behind, they're getting into super long counts in high leverage situations, those sort of things. What was kind of just your evaluation of the pitching against, again, one of the better offenses that you would have faced this year?
I thought it was good. There's definitely things we could do better. I thought Tyler was actually fairly nervous in her opportunity to pitch, and it kind of showed when we went back and watched film. I think she's capable of obviously pitching much better than what she did this weekend. But freshman nerves a little bit, I think, got to her. And but Taya's been in those moments a lot, so Taya was pretty unfazed, and Taya, was I would say a B-ish this weekend. Like she didn't pitch necessarily her best, but she handled the adversity really well. And I thought as the weekend went on, she just really, kind of learned what we wanted to do to Redlands' lineup, and was able to pretty effectively hit spots and do the things we want to do to kind of control their lineup. The only kid we had a really hard time with was obviously Horton. I think she had 4 of their 7 hits or whatever on the last day. So besides her, we thought we executed the plan pretty well.
Going into the Super Regional, again, Central, a program that's been in the top of the D3 softball conversation for decades now. They're number 24 in the nation coming in, top-ranked team in their region coming into the postseason. And, of course, coached by one of the all-time greats, George Wares, the active Division III wins leader with over 1,200 wins. Seems like a kind of similar squad to Redlands. A lot of base hits, a lot of stolen base opportunities, not a lot of power necessarily throughout the lineup. How are you kind of preparing for this team? Is it similar to preparing for Redlands, or are you having to readjust, particularly with an opponent you don't know nearly as well as you did with the Bulldogs?
There's definitely some adjustment. I think Coach Wares does a really good job with creating chaos in the infield with base running opportunities and bunting and stealing and fake bunt stealing and all kinds of different games that way. They try to put a lot of pressure on the defense from a base running standpoint. So just that's stuff we've kind of covered during the year, but no one quite plays that style to the degree that they do that we faced this year. So it's definitely going to be a test for us, I think, from that standpoint, just to be able to handle the adversity they try to create. A lot of it will obviously have to do with how well we pitch. If we can keep, obviously, kids off base, that limits the chaos you can create quite a bit. And then our ability to hit will be a big part of it. If we can score runs, I think that also is a limiting factor sometimes in terms of how many risks you want to take on the bases.
This is a group now that has really started to have quite a few postseason reps. Most of the juniors on this team are with the 21 team that went to the 8-team kind of COVID regional that year, and obviously making it all the way back to the national site. Does anything feel different this year with the approach, just what you've observed from the team, not so much of what you guys are talking about as a coaching staff with the team, but what you'd observed of the team compared to this point of the year last season?
I think we're a little more comfortable. I think our juniors obviously are the big class that's went through the playoff run, got to the World Series last year, and obviously at times is whatever 6 of our starters are in the junior class, or however 5 or 6, whatever it is. But that class is certainly more settled, and Sydney Hess is a little more settled as a sophomore, getting to do it again. I don't think Taya's much different. She's obviously pitched a lot. I think the game is the game to her, but certainly those kids, I think, are just a little more comfortable than they were last year for sure. And just in terms of adjusting, not maybe overreacting to bad at-bats, that kind of stuff, they've definitely been better.
Wildcats will be hosting the Central College Dutch Thursday and Friday with the NCAA Super Regional right here in McMinnville. First pitch for Game 1 on Thursday will be 4 o'clock. Game 2 will follow on Friday at 1:30. Game 3, if necessary, at 4 o'clock again on Friday afternoon. We hope you come on down and cheer on the Cats in person, but we'll, of course, have full live coverage for you on the Linfield Sports Network. Coach, thanks for the time. We left this weekend.
Yeah, thank you.